What was the period between 400 AD and 850 AD in Britain like? Do you know much about the transition from Roman Britain to Celtic and Anglo-Saxon kingdoms? Let's explore this early medieval period in Britain. The Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons, 400 AD, 850 AD, the origins of Welsh culture and the interactions between Celtic Britons and Anglo-Saxons. Introduction. The period between 400 AD and 850 AD in Britain marks a significant era characterized by the transition from Roman Britain to a landscape dominated by various Celtic and Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. We explore the origins of Welsh culture and the interactions between Celtic Britons and Anglo-Saxons during this transformative period. This narrative delves into the socio-political, cultural, and military aspects of these interactions, highlighting how they shaped the development of early Welsh identity and the broader historical landscape of Britain. Part 1. The end of Roman Britain and the rise of the Celtic kingdoms. The decline of Roman influence. The Roman Empire's influence in Britain began to wane in the late 4th century. The last Roman legions left Britain around 410 AD, marking the end of an era that had started in 43 AD with the Claudian invasion. Roman Britain had enjoyed centuries of relative peace and prosperity, but by the early 5th century, the Western Roman Empire itself was under severe pressure from various barbarian invasions. The withdrawal of Roman troops did not result in an immediate collapse of Roman administration. Instead, there was a gradual disintegration of central authority. The local Romano-British elites tried to maintain the Roman lifestyle, but without military support, they were vulnerable to external threats and internal strife. Archaeological evidence suggests that many Roman towns were abandoned or significantly reduced in size as people moved to more defensible locations. Roman influence in Britain had been both extensive and profound. The Roman military presence, infrastructure, and urbanization had fundamentally reshaped the British landscape. Major towns such as Londinium, London, Eboracum, York, and Camulodunum, Colchester, had become centers of trade, administration, and military activity. The construction of roads, villas, and forts facilitated the movement of goods and people, integrating Britain into the broader Roman economy. The introduction of Roman law, customs, and culture also had a lasting impact on the local population. However, by the late 4th century, signs of decline were evident. The Roman Empire was beset by internal strife, economic troubles, and external threats from barbarian groups such as the Goths, Vandals, and Huns. In Britain, the weakening of central authority led to increasing instability. The Picts and Scots, tribes from what is now Scotland and Ireland, began to launch raids into Roman Britain, exploiting the weakened defenses. In response, local Romano-British leaders took on greater responsibilities for defense and administration, a trend that would continue after the Roman withdrawal. The formal withdrawal of Roman troops in 410 AD, as mentioned in a letter from the Emperor Honorius to the British cities, marked a turning point. The Roman legions were recalled to defend the heartlands of the empire, leaving the Britons to fend for themselves. The sudden absence of the Roman military created a power vacuum that local leaders scrambled to fill. Without the unifying force of Roman authority, Britain fragmented into numerous small kingdoms and territories, each led by a chieftain or king. The socio-economic impact of the Roman withdrawal was profound. The collapse of Roman administration and the subsequent decline in trade and urban life led to a reversion to a more rural, agrarian society. Many towns were abandoned or reduced in size, and the large villas and estates that had characterized the Roman countryside fell into disrepair. The emphasis shifted from long-distance trade to local self-sufficiency, with communities focusing on agriculture and subsistence farming. Archaeological evidence supports this narrative of decline and transformation. Excavations of Roman towns such as Verulamium, St. Albans, and Corinium, Cirencesta, show signs of contraction and abandonment in the early 5th century. The rich material culture of Roman Britain, including fine pottery, glassware, and imported goods, becomes increasingly rare in the archaeological record. Instead, simpler, locally produced items become more common, reflecting the changing economic realities. Despite the challenges, the legacy of Roman Britain was not entirely erased. Elements of Roman culture, law, and language persisted, especially among the elite. The Christian Church, which had established a foothold in Roman Britain, continued to play a significant role in society, providing continuity and stability in the face of political upheaval. The network of roads and infrastructure, although deteriorating, still facilitated communication and movement across the landscape. Emergence of Welsh kingdoms. With the decline of Roman rule, several Celtic kingdoms began to emerge in what is now Wales. The history of early Wales is intricately linked with the Roman withdrawal. Gwynedd, Powys, Dyfed, and Gwent are among the notable kingdoms that developed during this period. Each kingdom was ruled by a local king or chieftain who wielded considerable power and influence over their respective territories. Gwynedd, located in northwest Wales, Gwynedd became one of the most powerful Welsh kingdoms. The dynasty of Cunedda is traditionally associated with the foundation of Gwynedd. Cunedda and his descendants migrated from the north, bringing with them military strength that helped to consolidate power in the region. The Historia Brittonum, attributed to Nennius, provides some of the earliest accounts of Gwynedd's formation. The emergence of Gwynedd is a prime example of the dynamic nature of post-Roman Britain. According to tradition, Cunedda, a leader from the area around the Firth of Forth in present-day Scotland, migrated to northwest Wales with his followers to combat Irish raiders. This migration not only brought military strength, but also established a ruling dynasty that would dominate the region for centuries. Gwynedd's strategic location, with its rugged terrain and access to the Irish Sea, provided natural defenses and opportunities for maritime trade. Powys, situated in eastern Wales, Powys was another significant kingdom. It encompassed much of the area that had been the Roman tribal territory of the Cornovii. The kingdom's heartland was centered on modern-day Shropshire and Montgomeryshire. Powys maintained its independence for several centuries, often coming into conflict with both Anglo-Saxon and other Welsh kingdoms. Powys's emergence as a powerful kingdom reflects the continuity and adaptation of pre-Roman tribal structures. The Cornovii, who inhabited the area during Roman times, were likely the ancestors of the rulers of Powys. The kingdom's leaders capitalized on the region's fertile land and strategic location along the Severn Valley, a major route for trade and communication. Powys's kings, such as Brochwel Yschtrathrog, played crucial roles in resisting Anglo-Saxon advances and maintaining the kingdom's autonomy. Dyfed. In southwest Wales, Dyfed was established, likely by Irish settlers known as the Deisi. The dynasty of Vortoporius, one of the kings mentioned by Gildas in his Dexitio et Conquestu Britanniae, was prominent in this region. The Irish influence in Dyfed is evident from place names and genealogical records. The establishment of Dyfed highlights the complex interactions between native Britons and incoming groups. The Deisi, an Irish tribe, settled in southwest Wales and established a ruling dynasty. This migration brought new cultural influences seen in the region's place names and archaeological finds, such as Ogham inscriptions. The integration of Irish settlers into the local population led to a unique blend of Celtic traditions in Dyfed. Gwent. Located in southeast Wales, Gwent was influenced by its proximity to the old Roman town of Caerwent. The Silures, a pre-Roman tribe, formed the core of this kingdom. Gwent played a crucial role in resisting Anglo-Saxon advances and maintaining Welsh culture. Gwent's location near the Roman town of Caerwent provided a link to the Roman past while also positioning the kingdom at the frontier of Anglo-Saxon expansion. The Silures, who had fiercely resisted Roman conquest, continued their legacy of independence and resistance. The kingdom's leaders, such as Tudrig and his son Murig, successfully defended Gwent against Anglo-Saxon incursions, preserving its distinct cultural identity. These kingdoms were not isolated but part of a network of Celtic polities across Britain. They maintained their distinct identities, partly through the preservation of their own languages, laws, and traditions. The fragmentation of power led to a period of regionalism, where local leaders were paramount and inter-kingdom alliances and rivalries were a constant feature. The emergence of these Welsh kingdoms marked a period of consolidation and adaptation. The leaders of Gwynedd, Powys, Dyfed, and Gwent built on pre-existing tribal structures while also responding to the new political and military challenges of post-Roman Britain. These kingdoms played crucial roles in preserving Celtic culture and identity, laying the foundations for the development of a distinct Welsh identity. The formation of these kingdoms also reflects the broader trends of early medieval Europe, where the collapse of centralized Roman authority led to the rise of regional powers. In this context, the Welsh kingdoms can be seen as part of a wider process of state formation and cultural adaptation that characterized the early Middle Ages. Part 2. The arrival of the Anglo-Saxons. Migration and settlement. The Anglo-Saxons, a collection of Germanic tribes including the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, began migrating to Britain in the early 5th century. Their arrival was initially part of a mercenary agreement with the local Celtic Britons to help defend against other invading tribes, such as the Picts and Scots. However, these Germanic tribes soon began to establish their own settlements and kingdoms, fundamentally altering the British landscape. According to the Venerable Bede's Ecclesiastical History of the English People, the first major wave of Anglo-Saxon migrants arrived in 3 ships, invited by Vortigern, a British king, to assist in defending against northern invaders. This initial group settled in the region that would become Kent. The archaeological record supports a significant influx of Germanic peoples during this period, as evidenced by the sudden appearance of new burial practices and material culture, distinct from Romano-British traditions. The Anglo-Saxon migration was part of a larger pattern of Germanic movements across Europe during the early medieval period. The reasons for their migration are multifaceted, including population pressures, climatic changes, and opportunities for plunder and settlement. The initial groups of Anglo-Saxons were likely warrior bands seeking new lands and wealth, but over time, entire communities, including women and children, migrated to Britain, establishing permanent settlements. The impact on the local Britons was profound. The Anglo-Saxon settlements were often established in fertile lowland areas, displacing the local population or pushing them into less desirable upland regions. This process of displacement and settlement transformed the British landscape, creating distinct Anglo-Saxon and Celtic regions. Anglo-Saxon kingdoms and their expansion. The establishment of Anglo-Saxon kingdoms brought significant changes to the political landscape of Britain. Early Anglo-Saxon settlements were initially small and scattered, but over time they coalesced into larger, more powerful entities. Notable kingdoms that emerged included Kent, Wessex, Mercia, and Northumbria. Kent. The Kingdom of Kent was established by the Jutes under the leadership of Hengist and Horsa. Kent's location made it a focal point for interaction with the continent, influencing its development. The introduction of Christianity in Kent, beginning with the mission of Augustine in 597 AD, played a crucial role in shaping the kingdom's culture and politics. Kent's strategic position in southeastern England facilitated trade and communication with the continent. The Jutes, who settled in Kent, brought with them distinct cultural practices, including burial customs and material culture. The adoption of Christianity, marked by the conversion of King Ethelbert by Augustine, further integrated Kent into the broader Christian world, aligning it with the powerful Frankish kingdom across the Channel. Wessex, founded by the Saxons, became one of the most powerful Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. Its expansion under kings like Cerdic and Cynric laid the foundations for what would eventually become the Kingdom of England. The West Saxons were adept at assimilating neighboring territories, often through a combination of military conquest and strategic marriages. Wessex's rise to power was marked by its ability to expand westward into territories occupied by the Britons. Kings such as Celan and Cynegils played crucial roles in this expansion, often engaging in battles with neighboring Britain and Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. The establishment of fortified settlements, or buzz, under King Alfred in the 9th century further strengthened Wessex's defenses and administrative control. Mercia, located in the central region of Britain, rose to prominence under the leadership of kings like Pinda and Offa. Mercia's power was partly due to its control of the fertile Midlands and its strategic position along major trade routes. Offa's Dyke, a massive earthwork running along the border with Wales, is a testament to Mercia's power and its relationship with the Welsh kingdoms. Mercia's dominance in central England was characterized by its ability to exert control over both Anglo-Saxon and Briton territories. King Penda, a pagan king, expanded Mercia's influence through warfare, often clashing with Christian kingdoms. Offa, who ruled in the late 8th century, is best known for constructing Offa's Dyke, which demarcated the boundary between Mercia and the Welsh kingdoms. This earthwork highlights the complex relationship between Mercia and its western neighbors, involving both conflict and cooperation. Northumbria, formed from the merger of Bernicia and Dara, became a center of cultural and religious activity. The kingdom was instrumental in the spread of Christianity, with monasteries like Lindisfarne and Whitby playing pivotal roles. Northumbrian kings such as Edwin and Oswald expanded their influence through both military might and religious patronage. Northumbria's emergence as a powerful kingdom was marked by its ability to integrate and control northern England. The conversion of King Edwin by the missionary Paulinus and the subsequent establishment of Christian monasteries facilitated the spread of Christianity and cultural exchange. The Synod of Whitby in 664 AD, where Northumbria adopted Roman Christian practices, further solidified the kingdom's religious and political connections with the wider Christian world. The expansion of Anglo-Saxon influence had profound implications for the Celtic Britons. The Anglo-Saxons often pushed westward, encroaching on Celtic territories. This led to the displacement of many Britons, who retreated into more remote and defensible areas such as Wales, Cornwall, and Brittany. The interactions between these two cultures were not solely hostile. There were also periods of peaceful coexistence and cultural exchange. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms developed distinct political and social structures. The concept of kingship, rooted in both Germanic and Christian traditions, played a central role in governance. Kings were expected to be both war leaders and lawgivers, upholding justice and protecting their people. The Anglo-Saxon legal system, as reflected in documents such as the Laws of Ethelbert, combined customary law with Christian principles. The establishment of shires and hundreds, administrative divisions for local governance, facilitated the consolidation of power and the administration of justice. These structures, along with the development of written records and charters, laid the foundations for the later medieval English state. The social structure of Anglo-Saxon society was hierarchical, with kings and nobles at the top, followed by free peasants, ceorls, and slaves. The importance of kinship and loyalty to one's lord was emphasized, reflecting the Germanic tradition of comitatus, a warrior band bound by loyalty to its leader. The conversion to Christianity had a profound impact on Anglo-Saxon culture. The establishment of monasteries and the spread of literacy led to the production of religious texts and literature. The works of Bede, such as the Ecclesiastical History of the English People, provide valuable insights into the history and culture of this period. The influence of Irish and continental missionaries, along with the establishment of bishoprics, integrated the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms into the broader Christian world. The interactions between the Anglo-Saxons and the Celtic Britons were complex and multifaceted. While there were periods of conflict and displacement, there were also instances of cooperation and cultural exchange. The spread of Christianity facilitated communication and shared religious practices, while trade and intermarriage contributed to the blending of cultural traditions. The emergence of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms and their interactions with the Celtic Britons set the stage for the development of medieval Britain. The distinct identities and political structures of the Anglo-Saxon and Celtic regions would continue to shape the history of the British Isles for centuries to come. Part 3. Interactions between Celtic Britons and Anglo-Saxons. Military conflicts and alliances. The relationship between the Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons was marked by a series of military conflicts and shifting alliances. The early interactions were characterized by warfare as the Anglo-Saxons sought to expand their territories. Key battles during this period include the Battle of Mountbatten and the Battle of Durham. Battle of Mountbatten, c. 500 AD, according to Gildas and later sources like the Annals Cambri, the The Battle of Mountbatten was a significant victory for the Britons against the Anglo-Saxons. The battle is often associated with the legendary figure of King Arthur, although historical evidence for Arthur's existence remains elusive. Mountbatten temporarily halted the westward expansion of the Anglo-Saxons and allowed the Britons to regroup and strengthen their positions. The Battle of Mountbatten is a pivotal event in the history of early medieval Britain. While the exact location and date of the battle remain uncertain, its significance is widely recognized. The victory at Mountbatten provided a respite for the Britons, allowing them to consolidate their territories and resist further Anglo-Saxon incursions. The battle also became enshrined in legend, contributing to the enduring myth of King Arthur as a heroic defender of Britain. Battle of Durham, 577 AD. This battle marked a significant victory for the Anglo-Saxons under the leadership of Selim of Wessex. The defeat of the Britons at Durham led to the capture of important cities like Bath, Gloucester, and Cirencester, further isolating the Britons in the west. The Battle of Durham was a crucial turning point in the Anglo-Saxon expansion into the west of Britain. Selim's victory allowed Wessex to secure key strategic locations and disrupt the continuity of Britain-held territories. The capture of Bath, Gloucester, and Cirencester not only provided valuable resources but also demonstrated the growing power and influence of Wessex. Despite these conflicts, there were also periods of alliance and cooperation. Marriages between Celtic and Anglo-Saxon elites were not uncommon, facilitating diplomatic relations and cultural exchange. For instance, the marriage of King Athelfrith of Northumbria to the British Princess Acha of Dara is one example of such alliances. Alliances and intermarriages between Celtic and Anglo-Saxon elites played a significant role in shaping the political landscape of early medieval Britain. These alliances were often driven by pragmatic considerations, such as securing peace, strengthening claims to territory, or gaining military support. The marriage of Athelfrith and Acha, for example, not only solidified Ethelfrith's claim to Dara but also facilitated cooperation between Northumbria and neighboring Britain kingdoms. Strategic marriages and alliances. The practice of forming alliances through marriage was a common strategy for both Celtic and Anglo-Saxon rulers. These marriages helped to create bonds of kinship and loyalty, fostering cooperation between different groups. In some cases, these alliances were instrumental in securing military support or legitimizing claims to territory. One notable example is the marriage of Rhodri Mar, a 9th-century king of Gwynedd, to Angharad, the daughter of King Murig of Powys. This alliance strengthened Rhodri's position and facilitated cooperation between Gwynedd and Powys. Such alliances were crucial in maintaining stability and resisting external threats, such as Viking raids or Anglo-Saxon expansion. Military cooperation. In addition to strategic marriages, military alliances were also formed between Celtic and Anglo-Saxon rulers. These alliances were often temporary and driven by specific threats or opportunities. For example, in the early 7th century, King Edwin of Northumbria sought an alliance with the Britons of Gwynedd to counter the threat posed by the powerful kingdom of Mercia. The shifting nature of alliances and conflicts reflects the complex and dynamic political landscape of early medieval Britain. Rulers had to navigate a constantly changing environment, balancing the need for cooperation with the imperative of defending their territories. Cultural exchange and influence. Despite the conflicts, there was considerable cultural exchange between the Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons. This included the adoption of certain customs, art forms, and religious practices. The spread of Christianity played a crucial role in facilitating this cultural exchange. Christianity, which had been established in Roman Britain, continued to spread and evolve under both Celtic and Anglo-Saxon influences. The Synod of Whitby in 664 AD was a pivotal moment where the Roman and Celtic Christian traditions clashed. The decision to follow Roman practices helped to unify the English Church but also highlighted the differences between the two cultural traditions. The spread of Christianity among the Anglo-Saxons was significantly influenced by both Roman and Celtic missionaries. The mission of Augustine in 597 AD, sent by Pope Gregory the Great, marked the beginning of the formal conversion of the Anglo-Saxons. Augustine established his base in Kent, where he successfully converted King Ethelbert and many of his subjects. Simultaneously, Irish missionaries, such as Street Columba and his followers from the monastery of Iona, played a crucial role in the conversion of northern and western regions. The blending of Roman and Celtic Christian traditions created a unique religious culture in Britain, characterized by distinct practices, art, and monastic traditions. The Synod of Whitby, convened by King Oswiu of Northumbria in 664 A.D., was a turning point in the religious history of Britain. The Synod aimed to resolve differences between the Roman and Celtic traditions, particularly regarding the calculation of Easter and certain ecclesiastical practices. The decision to adopt Roman practices helped to unify the English Church and align it more closely with the broader Christian world. Art and literature. The cross-fertilization of artistic traditions can be seen in the material culture of the period. Anglo-Saxon art, with its intricate metalwork and manuscript illumination, was influenced by Celtic styles, particularly in the use of complex interlaced patterns and zoomorphic motifs. The Lindisfarne Gospels, for instance, exemplify the blending of insular art styles. The influence of Celtic art on Anglo-Saxon metalwork is evident in the use of intricate designs, interlaced patterns, and animal motifs. The Sutton Hoo treasure, discovered in an Anglo-Saxon ship burial, contains numerous examples of metalwork that display Celtic artistic influences. Similarly, the illuminated manuscripts produced in Anglo-Saxon monasteries, such as the Lindisfarne Gospels and the Book of Kells, showcase the fusion of Celtic and Anglo-Saxon artistic traditions. Literary traditions. The literary traditions of the Celtic Britons and Anglo-Saxons also influenced each other. The preservation of oral traditions and the development of written literature were important aspects of both cultures. The Anglo-Saxon epic poem Beowulf, for example, reflects elements of the Germanic heroic tradition, while also showing influences from Celtic storytelling. The exchange of literary traditions was facilitated by the spread of monasticism and the establishment of scriptoria in monasteries. These scriptoria became centers of learning and manuscript production, where monks copied and preserved texts from various traditions. The interaction between Celtic and Anglo-Saxon monks in these centers of learning contributed to the blending of literary and cultural traditions. Legal and social structures. The interactions also influenced legal and social structures. The laws of Hywel Dda in Wales, codified in the 10th century, show both continuity with Celtic traditions and adaptations influenced by Anglo-Saxon legal practices. Socially, the concept of kinship and the importance of extended family units were shared features, though they manifested differently in each culture. The legal codes of both the Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons reflect a combination of customary law and Christian principles. The laws of Hywel Dda, for example, include provisions for the protection of women, inheritance rights, and compensation for injury, reflecting a blend of traditional Celtic law and Christian ethics. Similarly, the Anglo-Saxon legal codes, such as the laws of Ethelbert and the laws of Alfred, incorporate both Germanic customary law and Christian values. These legal codes provide insights into the social and political structures of early medieval Britain, highlighting the importance of kinship, loyalty, and justice. The concept of kinship played a central role in both Celtic and Anglo-Saxon societies. In Celtic society, kinship was the basis of social organization, with extended family groups, gweli, responsible for land management and mutual support. In Anglo-Saxon society, the concept of the comitatus, a warrior band bound by loyalty to a leader, was a key social institution. The blending of these traditions and the adaptation of legal and social structures to new political realities contributed to the development of a distinctive culture in early medieval Britain. The interactions between the Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons were characterized by both conflict and cooperation, resulting in a rich and diverse cultural landscape. Part 4. The formation of Welsh identity, language, and literature. The development of the Welsh language and literature during this period was a key factor in the formation of a distinct Welsh identity. The Welsh language evolved from Brythonic, the Celtic language spoken in Britain before the Anglo-Saxon invasions. It became a symbol of resistance and cultural continuity in the face of Anglo-Saxon expansion. Language evolution. The Welsh language, as a branch of the Brythonic language group, underwent significant changes during this period. The linguistic shift from Brythonic to Old Welsh can be traced through a combination of historical texts, inscriptions, and place names. The preservation of the Welsh language in the face of Anglo-Saxon expansion was crucial in maintaining a distinct cultural identity. The process of language evolution was influenced by both internal developments and external contacts. The arrival of the Anglo-Saxons and their establishment of kingdoms in eastern and central Britain created a linguistic frontier. While Anglo-Saxon, Old English, became dominant in the eastern regions, Welsh remained the primary language in the western parts of Britain. Literature. Welsh literature from this period includes a rich body of poetry and prose. The works of poets like Taliesin and Aneurin provide insights into the heroic culture of the Welsh kingdoms. Taliesin, often associated with the court of Urien of Rheged, composed poems that celebrated the exploits of Welsh heroes. Aneurin's Wygodaden is an epic poem that recounts the Battle of Cattraeth, where Britons fought against the Anglo-Saxons. The poetry of Taliesin and Aneurin reflects the values and beliefs of Welsh society. These works celebrate the heroism of warriors, the importance of loyalty, and the struggles of the Welsh people against their enemies. The preservation of these poems in later medieval manuscripts, such as the Book of Taliesin and the Book of Aneurin, highlights their enduring significance in Welsh culture. Oral traditions. The preservation of oral traditions was crucial in maintaining Welsh identity. These traditions were eventually recorded in manuscripts such as the Mabinogion, a collection of medieval Welsh tales that blend mythology, folklore, and history. The stories of the Mabinogion reflect the values and beliefs of Welsh society and provide a window into the cultural continuity from the pre-Roman to the medieval period. The Mabinogion, composed of tales such as The Four Branches, Culhwch and Olwen, and The Dream of Maxen Ledig, represents a synthesis of mythological, historical, and literary elements. These stories were passed down orally for generations before being written down in the 12th and 13th centuries. The Mabinogion provides valuable insights into the worldview and cultural heritage of the Welsh people. Social and political structures. The social and political structures of the Welsh kingdoms were characterized by a combination of traditional Celtic practices and adaptations to the new political realities. The role of kings, the organization of society, and the legal systems all contributed to the unique identity of the Welsh people. Kingship. Welsh kingship was both hereditary and elective, with the concept of tanistry allowing for the selection of the most capable male relative as the successor. This system aimed to balance the need for strong leadership with the maintenance of dynastic continuity. Kings were expected to be warriors, lawgivers, and patrons of the arts. The concept of tanistry, where the most capable male relative was chosen as the successor, was designed to ensure that the kingdom was led by a strong and competent ruler. This system helped to mitigate the risks of succession disputes and maintain stability. The role of the king as a warrior and protector of the people was central to Welsh kingship, reflecting the martial values of Celtic society. Law. The legal system in Wales was complex and detailed. The laws of Hywel Dda, although codified in the 10th century, were based on earlier Celtic legal traditions. These laws covered various aspects of daily life, including land tenure, marriage, and the rights of women. The emphasis on restitution over retribution and the use of arbitration and dispute resolution were notable features of Welsh law. The laws of Hywel Dda provide a comprehensive overview of Welsh legal traditions. These laws address issues such as land ownership, inheritance, marriage, and compensation for injury. The emphasis on restitution, where offenders were required to compensate their victims, reflects the importance of maintaining social harmony. The use of arbitration and mediation in resolving disputes highlights the communal nature of Welsh society. Welsh society was organized into kinship groups called gweli, which were extended family units responsible for the collective management of land and resources. The importance of kinship ties is reflected in the legal and social obligations that individuals had toward their relatives. The concept of the senatal, nation, or tribe was central to Welsh identity, reinforcing the idea of a shared cultural and historical heritage. The social structure of Welsh society was hierarchical, with kings and nobles at the top, followed by free peasants and bondsmen. The importance of kinship and loyalty to one's family and community was a defining feature of Welsh social organization. The preservation of these social structures and traditions played a crucial role in maintaining Welsh identity in the face of external pressures. The development of Welsh identity was also influenced by interactions with neighboring cultures. The presence of Anglo-Saxon and Viking settlers in Britain created opportunities for cultural exchange and adaptation. The Welsh adopted and adapted certain aspects of Anglo-Saxon and Viking culture, while also maintaining their distinct traditions. The formation of Welsh identity during this period was a dynamic process, shaped by internal developments and external influences. The preservation of the Welsh language, literature, and social structures provided a foundation for the continued development of Welsh culture in the medieval period and beyond. Part 5. Legacy and Impact. Continuity and change. The interactions between the Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons had a lasting impact on the history of Britain. While the Anglo-Saxons eventually came to dominate much of the island, the Celtic Britons, particularly in Wales, maintained a distinct cultural and political identity. Cultural continuity. The continued use of the Welsh language and the preservation of Celtic traditions are testament to the resilience of Welsh culture. Despite pressures to assimilate, the Welsh maintained their distinct identity through their language, literature, and legal traditions. The survival of works like the Mabinogion and the Laws of Hywel Dda provide valuable insights into the continuity of Welsh culture. The preservation of the Welsh language and the continued production of Welsh literature were crucial in maintaining a distinct cultural identity. The transmission of oral traditions and the recording of these traditions in written form ensured that the cultural heritage of the Welsh people was preserved for future generations. Political autonomy. The Welsh kingdoms maintained a degree of political autonomy, often resisting Anglo-Saxon encroachment through military means and strategic alliances. The concept of a unified Welsh identity began to take shape, driven by a shared sense of history and culture. The legacy of this period can be seen in the later medieval Welsh resistance to Norman and English rule, exemplified by figures such as Owain Glyndwr. The political autonomy of the Welsh kingdoms allowed them to develop distinct political structures and traditions. The ability of Welsh rulers to resist external threats and maintain their independence was a key factor in the preservation of Welsh identity. The legacy of this political autonomy is evident in the continued resistance to external domination and the efforts to unify Wales under a single ruler. Influence on later history. The period between 400 AD and 850 AD set the stage for subsequent historical developments in Britain. The interactions between the Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons influenced the later Norman conquest and the eventual unification of Britain. Norman conquest. The Norman conquest of England in 1066 brought significant changes to the political and cultural landscape of Britain. The Normans, themselves of Viking descent, introduced feudalism and reshaped the governance of the territories they controlled. However, in Wales, the Normans encountered well-entrenched Welsh kingdoms that resisted their advances, leading to a protracted period of conflict and eventual conquest in the 13th century. The Norman conquest of England had a profound impact on the political landscape of Britain. The introduction of feudalism and the restructuring of governance under Norman rule created a centralized and hierarchical political system. In Wales, the Normans faced significant resistance from the established Welsh kingdoms. The efforts to conquer and control Wales were met with fierce opposition, resulting in a series of conflicts and rebellions. The legacy of the Norman conquest in Wales is evident in the construction of castles and fortifications, as well as the integration of Welsh territories into the Norman administrative system. The continued resistance of the Welsh people, exemplified by figures such as Llywelyn the Great and Llywelyn ap Griffith, highlighted the enduring desire for political autonomy and cultural preservation. Unification of Britain. The complex interplay between Celtic and Anglo-Saxon identities continued to shape the history of Britain. The eventual unification of England, Scotland, and Wales into a single political entity was influenced by the legacies of this early medieval period. The cultural and historical distinctions that emerged during the interactions between the Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons contributed to the rich tapestry of British identity. The process of unification in Britain was influenced by the interactions between different cultural groups. The merging of Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, and Norman traditions created a diverse and multifaceted cultural landscape. The distinct identities and traditions of the Welsh, Scots, and English contributed to the development of a complex and dynamic British identity. The unification of Britain was a gradual and complex process, involving political negotiations, military conflicts, and cultural exchanges. The legacy of the early medieval period, with its intricate web of alliances, conflicts, and cultural interactions, provided a foundation for the development of a unified political entity. The legacy of the interactions between the Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons is evident in the continued diversity of British culture. The preservation of Welsh, Scots, and English traditions, languages, and identities reflects the enduring impact of this period on the cultural landscape of Britain. Conclusion. The era between 400 AD and 850 AD was a transformative period in the history of the British Isles, marked by the decline of Roman influence, the rise of Celtic kingdoms, and the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons. The interactions between the Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons were characterized by conflict, cooperation, and cultural exchange, shaping the development of Welsh culture and identity. Thus, we have explored the origins of Welsh culture and the intricate dynamics between these two groups, highlighting their lasting impact on the history of Britain. The decline of Roman influence and the emergence of Welsh kingdoms such as Gwynedd, Powys, Dyfed, and Gwent set the stage for the development of a distinct Welsh identity. The arrival of the Anglo-Saxons and the establishment of kingdoms such as Kent, Wessex, Mercia, and Northumbria brought significant changes to the political and cultural landscape of Britain. The interactions between these groups, marked by military conflicts and alliances, facilitated cultural exchange and adaptation. The preservation of the Welsh language, literature, and legal traditions played a crucial role in maintaining a distinct Welsh identity. The development of Welsh kingship, social structures, and legal systems reflected a combination of traditional Celtic practices and adaptations to new political realities. The legacy of this period is evident in the continued resilience of Welsh culture and the political autonomy of the Welsh kingdoms. The influence of this period on later historical developments, including the Norman conquest and the unification of Britain, highlights the enduring impact of the interactions between the Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons. The complex interplay of cultural identities and political structures during this period contributed to the rich tapestry of British history. In conclusion, the interactions between the Celtic Britons and the Anglo-Saxons between 400 AD and 850 AD were a defining feature of early medieval Britain. These interactions shaped the development of Welsh culture and identity, influencing the broader historical landscape of the British Isles. The legacy of this period continues to be felt in the cultural and political diversity of modern Britain, reflecting the enduring significance of this transformative era. Thanks for listening to Medieval Chronicles 1066. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more medieval history adventures. Stay curious.